Can Travis Hunter win the Heisman? Yes, but he's going to have to follow this roadmap. I'm going to give you the roadmap throughout the video. Y'all let me know if y'all agree. I made this video because throughout the spring, a healthy Travis Hunter showed he was the best player on the field. As Coach Prime says, Travis is him.
Travis is him.
The best player in college football does not always win the Heisman. Think of Myles Garrett, Andrew Luck, and Michael Vick. They were the best players for those seasons. And look in comparison. Sometimes you have people like Eric Crouch, Nebraska legend, who won a Heisman but never played in the NFL. So it's not always about the best player. It's about who has the best season and enough stats to justify a vote, especially on defense. The closest defensive player to win the Heisman was really recent. It just happened with Aiden Hutchinson. But it was really not close because he received primarily second place votes, which means he ain't winning. He received only 78 first place votes, while the winner that year, Bryce Young, received 684 first place votes. So in my view, the closest defensive player to win the Heisman was Ndamukong Suh. He had 161 first place votes. The winner that year was Mark Ingram. Ndamukong Suh finished fourth in the voting. He had 12 sacks overall, and I remember that season. He was unblockable. He almost beat Texas by himself that year. If you go back and watch the highlights, he was insane in that game. The next defensive player, and was the actual defensive back, was Tyrann Mathieu. He was the closest DB. He finished fifth in 2011 with 34 first place votes. The winner that year was RG3. Now, Tyrann was the better player. He had 2 interceptions that year, but it was his return yards and his knack for causing fumbles fueled his Heisman campaign. Yeah, I can see it now in my head with him returning not interceptions, but fumbles and punt returns for touchdowns. Now, I have not seen Travis return at all. As far as kick return, punt return, I'm sure he could do it. But here is what it's going to take from a receiver standpoint. All right. Devonta Smith won in 2020. He had 117 receptions, 1,856 yards, and 23 touchdowns. Yeah, that kind of production is what it's going to take as a full-time wide receiver. And that was enough to beat out Trevor Lawrence that year. That's going to be really hard to replicate with the type of receiving room Colorado has. And Shedeur is not that type of quarterback where he's going to lock in on one guy. He is going to go through his reads. He's elite at progressive reads. You saw that in the spring game and throughout his time at Jackson State. He's going to throw the ball in different directions. The Tom Brady connection is real. You see him. He's not going to look to run. He's looking to throw and go through the reads. So on defense, what he needs to do, so he needs to focus on defense on what he needs to do to close the gap. The only, and I do mean only, primary defender, defensive back to win the Heisman in its history is the Hall of Famer Charles Woodson. He had 7 interceptions and 43 tackles at Michigan. He also played offense. He caught 11 balls for 231 yards and a touchdown. That's the floor, all right? That's the floor. Things change. The game changes over time. So at minimum, that's what his stats have to be around to have Heisman voters think about it. He's going to have to do more because it's different times. All right. So I have no doubt in my mind Travis will have over 11 catches, 231 yards, and 1 touchdown. That's no problem. Last year at Jackson State University, when he moonlighted at wide receiver while he was injured, he still had 18 receptions for 109 yards and 4 touchdowns. So offensively, where does that leave him? He needs to be a two-way player to actually win the award. Offensively, he needs to be at least 50 to 60 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and over 5 touchdowns. The more touchdowns, the better. Now, why is that? In 2016, D.D. Westbrook, a dog wide receiver out of Oklahoma, one of my favorite Oklahoma players, he finished 4th in voting. He had 80 receptions and 17 touchdowns. That is the lowest amount of receptions I found for a full-time receiver to make it to New York for the Heisman ceremony. And to win, the bar is going to be even higher. Travis is just not on a team to replicate Devonta's numbers as a full-time wide receiver. He's going to have to be a two-way player to win. So that what does he need to do on defense? And he needs to be special. In the last 23 years, the only DBs to have Heisman consideration were Tyrann Mathieu and Jabril Peppers out of Michigan. It is an offensive award. I mean, it is what it is. So you got to be special. Tyrann Mathieu had 2 interceptions to be a candidate, but to win like Charles Woodson had 7 interceptions. So I think I'm coming up with the magical numbers. I think it's going to take at least 5 interceptions on the defensive end. Travis will not be able to win as a full-time wide receiver. It's just the talent in the room, and again, Shedeur is just an equal distributor type of quarterback. Travis may not be able to win as a full-time cornerback either because, frankly, the Pac-12 quarterbacks don't throw a lot of interceptions. The Heisman winner, Caleb Williams, only had 5. Shedeur only threw 6 himself last year. And he didn't throw it in the spring game, but he's not trying to throw the ball. And it's crazy. They actually throw the ball nearly every down. So he's not trying to throw the ball to the other team. That's not what Shedeur does. So he's going to have to blend his Heisman campaign with offense and defense. I honestly think Travis could easily get 1,200 yards off 50 to 60 receptions because he's an explosive player. He's not a possession receiver, and he can break stuff open in the open field. So here's the stat line. So 1,200 yards receiving overall, 7 touchdowns. If you have 6 interceptions and one of those are a pick 6, I think he might hold up the homie. He might hold up the Heisman Trophy. So that's special. That's what it's going to have to take to dethrone Caleb Williams and at least beat out Shedeur if he has a great year as well. So he has to do something even Prime could not do. In case you were wondering, Coach Prime finished 8th in Heisman voting with 5 interceptions and 2 touchdowns. Time will tell. I mean, I think he could do it, but it has to deal with campaigns. And it's funny because Coach Prime, the year he was up for Heisman consideration, he actually lost to Barry Sanders. Now, you got to look at the rest of the country. Barry Sanders had over 2,000 yards rushing. He was unbelievable. I couldn't believe his stats up there on the screen. You can see it for yourself. It's unbelievable. So Deion could have had a special year. It probably would have still went to Barry. So it depends on what else is going on in the country. But I think that stat line is indicative on what it's going to take for him to actually be in New York and have an absolute shot, because it's beyond time. We haven't had a defensive player win however many years, and receivers barely win. Devonta broke the mold, of course, with his numbers to break that. So it's really like a quarterback, running back award. So it would be great to see somebody, a two-way player, DB, get it, or some other position. So until next time. And by the way, thank y'all so much for commenting and watching videos. I appreciate y'all so much. Please keep liking, subscribing, and commenting. I love going back and forth with everybody, especially on football. Y'all have a great one. Heritage Sports.